Recently, actress Lee Si-young disclosed that she became pregnant through in vitro fertilization without her ex-husband's consent, sparking widespread controversy. Reporter Jang Dong-gun looked into whether using frozen embryos and undergoing embryo transfer without the former spouse's approval is considered illegal.
On the 8th, actress Lee Si-young took to her social media account to disclose her pregnancy. She explained that despite her ex-husband's objection, she decided to proceed with the implantation of frozen embryos stored for a second child before their disposal deadline. Is there any legal issue with in vitro fertilization carried out without the consent of the former spouse? According to current legal standards, both the individual and their spouse must provide written consent when sperm and eggs are collected for the creation of embryos at medical institutions. However, no clear consent regulations exist regarding embryo implantation, making it hard to classify this as illegal.
Regardless of the husband's consent, there doesn't appear to be any legal grounds to penalize her for using her embryos to become pregnant.
In a case where an ex-husband sued a hospital for performing a frozen embryo implantation without his consent, the court dismissed the case, stating that since consent was originally given for embryo creation, and there was no explicit withdrawal of that consent, it constituted implied consent. However, there are ongoing arguments that legal consent procedures ought to be required for embryo implantation, since the ex-husband could be held responsible for child-rearing obligations.
Spouse consent is generally understood to apply only at egg or sperm retrieval and assumed to cover embryo transfer during the marriage.
What about cases in other countries? In the United States, there is a growing trend to recognize the right to avoid parenthood in lawsuits over frozen embryo ownership. In 2017, courts in New York and Arizona ruled that if one spouse opposes having a child, the frozen embryos must be either discarded or donated to a third party. Following controversies over such rulings, Arizona introduced a law allowing the spouse who wishes to use the frozen embryos for childbirth to do so, while exempting the other spouse from child-rearing responsibilities. In Lee Si-young's case, it seems to have been resolved amicably, as her ex-husband expressed his willingness to take responsibility as a father. However, as family structures become more diverse, mature discussions and proper legal frameworks regarding childbirth need to be developed alongside. In summary, the claim that in vitro fertilization without the ex-spouse's consent is illegal is not accurate. This fact has been confirmed by reporter Jang Dong-gun.